Hi everyone, it's Risindu here, and today I'll be taking a look at the APIIT ISDC motion and breaking it down, talking about the context in which this debate takes place, and then the arguments I think each side can run and how they compare to each other. The motion I'll be taking a look at is this house, as an up-and-coming young game designer, would rather work in an indie studio than a AAA studio. So I think there are three very important terms here and characterizations that proposition should ideally be setting at the start of the debate. That is indie game studios, AAA studios, and an up-and-coming game designer. But before all of this, I think the motion in itself can be simplified when you take the whole gaming aspect out of it. This is to say, you could just take this as is a simple motion of whether you want to work like a corporate job where you have the benefits and downsides of that, in contrast to working in a smaller job where you might not have all of that, but you'll have your own like unique benefits and unique harms of working in a place like that. I think in like prep time, if you approach it from an area like that, if you aren't really aware of like a gaming industry, I think it's easier to do so than to get like maybe lost in the examples of an info slide. I think here, when you take like AAA studios, it's very simple, right? You're going to get the corporate benefits of maybe like easier working hours, alongside like health benefits or insurances, or like all of that like corporate jargon. And in an indie game studio, you are not going to get all of those, but uniquely you might have more freedom to do something like that, or you are able to also characterize it to say you'll have less freedom because you will have more deadlines and you will have to like work more and put in more effort because it isn't inherently a more structured system to do so. But I think uniquely what you can't really squirrel in this debate is to say that indie game studios means you are like a loner doing something like that is absolutely no value, or that it's not going to get you like any sort of like monetary benefit. Because I think this like an indie studio can inherently be something similar to like an IT startup. This means sure there might be issues in like delays in payments, or maybe the payment is like considerably less than what you'd get at a AAA studio, but you're still going to be getting like a certain sum of money, and that's going to give you some purchasing power. I think the debate then within these two is with regards to like purchasing power, as well as like the overall happiness and utility you can get from whether you get freedom or not, and then there will be like sub points under each of these as we go forward. I think then uniquely as an up-and-coming game designer, this is an actor motion. So if you can prove to me why this actor is a certain way and why it would benefit them, this is to say that working at maybe an indie game studio and the passion that you're going to get inherently from that is so important that you should win this debate, or you should moreover focus on your life and like trying to get a sort of solid startup so you can go into the field and then still pursue your passion on the other side where you say you're going to be working for the AAA studio. I think these are like at face value where the debate is going to lie upon. So I think with that out of the way, I'll directly move on to like the government arguments that I think you can run. The first and most obvious one is with regards to passion, right? On Gov, to say that you should work on an indie studio, say that uniquely people who choose to become game developers are people who played games when they were maybe small. These are people who have a unique interest to it, a love for it, and they want to develop it and put their ideas forward. This is to say that in an indie game studio where you have like a small, more tight-knit community, you're going to inherently have more power. This means like even if you start at like a lower position, you are going to be given more responsibilities in creating more stuff. This means you can put your input more, and if you are someone who's passionate, that is what's going to be most important for you, right? Your expectations then aren't going to be with regards to like purchasing power and the amount of like monetary incentives you can get, but rather about passion. And if you are able to fully utilize that happiness that you can get, you can win this debate. I think that is like the main line that government should be pushing for, right? Into this, you can also say since you are up and coming, you are allowed to take this risk. This means maybe it is harder to do something like this later down the line and take a big risk when you have more responsibilities, when maybe you have a family or something. To say that you're an up and coming game developer, this means you're more likely to be in your 20s, maybe just after a degree or something like that, where you have the amount to experiment and try to make it in a different way. So I think that unique characterization to help this argument is better, so that it's going to mitigate opposition from coming and saying, hey, you can still be a game developer later, or rather join an indie studio later on, or you can go up the corporate ladder in a AAA studio and then make your power, right? I think to say that this is a unique position for you to utilize this power to like get the maximum utility out of your passion, and inherently then give you more happiness, I think this should be like the main argumentation that's going to push forth, right? The way that you can show how this happens is that you're going to get more freedom, right? This means the people that are in the game studio, who are inherently going to be a more tight-knit community, who work together, who work long hours together, who put their passion and like soul, like their heart and soul into it, are more likely to listen to your ideas when they're going to do things like this, right? This means that they are more open to listening to ideas inherently when there is no corporate structure, inherently when you are more friendlier and work together with each other. Secondly, this means you're not going to be given like a lot of menial tasks. Like in contrast, if you are to join like a AAA studio, you're going to be given a lot of tasks that like at first aren't going to be very interesting to you, right? This might look like something like, designing like the foliage of a big game, where your input and your passion will not be seen to anyone, because you've been given menial tasks by people who've already set the standard for what needs to happen, and you're merely executing it. If you can prove that, then in the AAA studio, the amount of work you're going to be given is going to give you zero utility in terms of passion, I think you can win this argumentation, right? Another thing to add to this, onto why you are going to get more passion and then like more creative control, is because there's going to be like a better work culture. I think here what I mean by better work culture is with regards to like your colleagues are also likely to be passionate developers, because they've also chosen the option to join this sort of like indie game studio when they have the option to join like a AAA studio, like assuming that. So I think inherently that means you're going to be working with other fellow passionate people. You're going to be bouncing like creative ideas off each other. Passion overall is going to be represented on a much greater scale on your side then. I think, again, in the same point, but if you have to compare it with AAA studios, you're more likely to feel like a cog in the wheel. This means the people that you're working with aren't going to be like in the same sort of tight-knit community, and you just feel like you're put to be another person who just turns the wheel, and you don't get to have like your passion and your ideas actually shown forward. Moving then into like other sorts of arguments that you could maybe push on government, I think the idea of what happens in a AAA game, like what happens when a game fails in AAA studios, is very important, right? Because you will inherently be part of like a system in which people perceive you. This is to say, let's say you worked on something like Assassin's Creed, which for maybe people who aren't really in the gaming industry, is a game that usually it gets a lot of flack online, right? So you are put into place with this identity that you worked with these sort of games, you work with this franchise, you work with this brand identity, and this means there's going to be a lot of people hating on this game and hating on the thing that you worked in. Uniquely, what's important is, even though you can concede this isn't going to like stop your chances at working somewhere else because you want like a higher up, you're still going to be getting like a lot of hate. This means when you see online hate that is directed at the developers, that is directed at the game itself, it is going to hit you on a personal level as an up-and-coming game developer as well. I think this is another point that shows why your passion might drop down the longer you work in these studios, because you're being a cog in the machine, and if a game fails or if it gets any sort of hatred, which most AAA studios now, like AAA games now do, you're going to like inherently decrease your utility in terms of passion. I think the difference in then success with regards to being an indie game developer is also important. I think the metric you measure success if you work in an indie game studio is completely different. This means success isn't going to be things like getting the most amount of money, or like saying you're going to have the next Minecraft or Undertale where it's going to be the most popular game. We concede that is a less likely possibility. But the success is through like marketing, through social media, through development videos, through streams, where you put yourself in the community and where you are an active part of this community. You can say like the era of the social media in general helps you push for these sort of things, and you get more utility, you get more success, even if it's just a few people who are looking at these videos, a few hundred, a few thousand people who comment. The inherent happiness and utility you get from that is like better, and you're going to get some sort of success. This means it's far less likely that you're going to be complete failures, even though we concede that you're maybe not going to be like the breakout stars of like Minecraft or Undertale, but you will have some sort of success enough to utilize your passion and also still get like some sort of monetary incentive to keep pursuing this side of studio, right? Also uniquely when it comes to Kickstarters, rather when it comes to indie games, there's a lot, since the community element is always present, since you are working in a community, since there's a big community of people who focus on indie games, especially with the rise of it with social media, it's easier for you to get funding through things like Kickstarters, where fans of these people, fans of these games, these concepts that you put out, inherently get together and give you an amount of money to develop this game. So I think you will still have some sort of funding, even apart from the other types of marketing you get. And I think uniquely, it's easier to get this funding, and because you can stand out, right? Uniquely, indie game studios have a lot of passion, a lot of creativity. This means they are very different from the games that are being put out from AAA studios. So when you go to Twitter, you put a GIF of it, you put a video of it, you explain this, and you do these social media marketing campaigns. It is easy to stand out, and I think that means inherently you are able to get the impacts of maybe more fans, and therefore getting more money to actually have Kickstarters through this, right? I think then this is most of the proposition case. I think if you are going to do a few other stuff, you could compare it to comparing AAA studios and how there's going to be unrealistic deadlines and the work culture is going to be really hard. Again, this is your standard corporate argument to say why this is bad, and to say that also maybe as a preemptive response that you aren't really going to be learning a lot of things either, because I think that is a big point that I'll get to in opposition. You could say that, look, maybe you're not going to be learning a lot of things even if it's a AAA studio, because inherently you're still going to be doing menial tasks, you're going to be put in certain departments, and you're not going to get the best hands-on experience. I think these are more minor things, but if you can prove the passion argument, and if you can prove that the success is still going to be there with these 2 points, I think you can win on prop. Moving then into the opposition arguments. The first and most obvious one is the stability of the job, right? This is to say you're up and coming, so you need to have good working conditions and you need to have payments in order to continue to be a part of this, right? Because again, even though proposition can characterize it to say that you're going to have some sort of spending power, you can show the difference in that spending power and why that degree, or rather the increase in that degree of spending power, is so important to you as an up-and-coming game developer. Because if you are going to get burnt out working in indie game studios and not getting any success, at least you're going to have the money to have a stable life, to have a stable job, to go outside and still make friends, still have a social life, because you are not going to be putting your 100% into this, right? This means that this is an inherent argument with regards to stress that you can have in comparative to to indie game, when you're in an indie game studio, because you're going to be more hands-on, and the downside of that is that you are going to be spending a lot more time there, and failure is going to be much worse. And since you can characterize it to say indie game studios aren't going to be getting a lot of breakout success anyway, the chances of failure is a lot more. And even if it isn't complete failure, small failures can still feel bad because you're putting a lot of your life into it, and this means that inherently you're going to be losing the passion as well, right? So the argument of having a stable job and showing that their biggest harm of passion is going to still be still going to be bad on either side, I think is an argument that you can run on opposition, right? The second side of sort of idea I want to talk about in opposition is that you're going to be learning from the experts, right? This means that uniquely in a AAA game studio, you get a lot more money, you get a lot more spending money. This means the people who are good at their jobs would want to go to this. Two things, right? The companies are going to want to get the best, and the best people are going to want to work there, because this is where they get to do their passionate stuff, because they'll be in higher positions and also get money for themselves, have a better job, a stability in itself. This means that you can characterize it to say that experts are going to exist on this side or in AAA studios, and then when you join these sort of departments, even if it is maybe not the department that you ideally want to start in game development, you're going to be able to learn from this experience, right? Understand these companies also want to take you in and train you, because you are going to be the next expert. You will be climbing the corporate ladder, and at the point that they can see that you're a passionate person and that you're putting your work and your effort into this sort of things, and also learning from the experts, is when you can move up in this ladder, right? So I think it's an easy argument to run that you're going to get some sort of training and some sort of learning in opposition side, and that is going to be uniquely better for you. Third idea that I want to talk about is how it is extremely hard for you to compete in the indie game market, and why you're more likely to like fail, right? First, the budget for marketing is going to be less. Like, even though you can have like social media posts, if inherently only a few people like follow you or whatnot, you're not going to get the most like outreach from these marketing campaigns, and you don't have the spending power to put a lot of money into this, to hire social media workers or to like make advertisements and put this out there, right? You are inherently relying on the fact that maybe somewhere down the line this is going to be like this one tweet is going to blow up with like 5,000 likes, and that means I'll get some sort of marketability, right? Second thing on why it's comparatively better in the, like AAA studios is because uniquely you have a brand identity. This means everyone knows what Ubisoft is. If it is a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't really matter because you're getting it out there, right? It is harder for these indie game studios to compete with these people in a large scale. That means while they can have like smaller successes in indie game studios, it is harder to guarantee that it's going to be a stable success over a long period of time. So it is easy for you as opposition here to characterize it and say that then you're not going to be getting like a stable income. Even if you get some sort of income, there is going to be dips in it, and that is uniquely bad for you. Understand then the final thing in this third point I want to talk about is with regards to why you're going to have to then work more, because there aren't like other people who do a lot of stuff. The company is inherently small, it is a smaller community. You're going to have to put in long hours, long nights working, and in most cases you're not even really going to get the full utility out of that. So I think that is uniquely bad, and that is something that opposition should always push for. Then in comparison, what are like the benefits you can get in a AAA studio? I think you're going to get like a lot of budget to do things. Right? This means like when it comes to like, Unreal Engine 5, or in less technical terms, like more newer technology. This is the area where you get access to newer technology to use, right? You join as someone, even if you are in a lower level, you get to utilize this technology, you get to learn. So not only do you get like training from like experts or like to hang around with experts and higher ups and actually learn from them, but you're also going to be able to use like the newest technology. This inherently again ties into passion, because if your passion is to be a game developer, you want to like use this technology, you want to like play around in it, even if it is a smaller contribution. If you are so passionate and you get to work in this, you still feel a level of satisfaction when you give some sort of contribution with this type of technology. Then you learn from the experts, right? I think that mitigates their passion argument to an extent and actually gives you more benefit, like a positive case for you as well, because you're going to like learn more either way, right? Then I think the last point that I want to talk about in opposition is increased hireability afterwards. This means as an indie game studio, if you work in an indie game studio for let's say 5-6 years and you don't really have a lot of success, or like the standard indie game studio will have like a few successes here and there, you're not going to be like recognized as much when you like want to move forward, right? Assuming that the indie game studio doesn't succeed, this means you aren't really going to want to work. You aren't going to want to work there. For a long amount of time, because you will need stability at some point in your life, and you will have to move forward. That is to say, then it is harder for you to find a job because you might not know the newest technology. You might not have been trained in by the newest people, and your success is inherently lower. So because of like these three reasons, it's harder for you to get something. And in contrast, what you can say in opposition is because you've learned from this, even if like the game was a failure, you still learned, you know how to work in these like newer environments, you're always up to date, you've learned from the experts, you have the ability to network with these people and move forward to get more jobs, right? And you inherently are someone who's well established in this sort of systems. This means you can move on to other things. An extension of this that you could also run is to say that then if you really are so passionate, after getting these sort of things, you could then maybe go back to a step, like create your own studios and do something after some sort of success. But that is like a more minor point that I don't really want to focus on. I think then finally, the two main clashes that are in my head and how you can win is passion really that important on proposition, and can you prove that you're going to get so much more like utility in terms of passion and happiness as a game developer in comparison to op? And if op can show me, well, maybe it's going to be like a marginal increase in passion, but you're still going to be able to utilize like your game development skills to some extent, and you're still going to be happy and utilize your passion to some extent, they can maybe win that clash. And then the second clash, which is maybe with regards to like success, which is inherently like a harder clash for proposition to prove, which is why they rely more on the passion argument. If they can prove that you're still going to get some sort of success with regards to a few Reddit comments, how that's going to make you happy, and again tie to your passion argument and say success is still going to be there, you're still going to have some sort of stability to work there, and then you can maybe win that clash as well. But I think it's very dependent on winning the passion clash, and it is like maybe a 2-in-1 deal if you want to win this debate as proposition. Opposition, I think the second clash is also maybe by definition, then opposition's second clash is easier for them to win because they can show you how there's going to be like more stability and all of that. But then if they can also prove that first clash on why their passion argument is reduced and the harms aren't as bad as they say, and you also have like positive benefits to working in a AAA studio when it comes to your passion and utility, I think then opposition can maybe win this debate. That's it from me. I hope you guys learned something from this. Thank you.